The Sirens is a new historical fiction magical realism by Emilia Hart, author of Weyward. So, should you heed the Sirens' call or steer clear? Hi, I'm Amanda, and this is Spineless Books, your one-stop shop for all things audiobook. I seem to be running into the genre of historical fiction and magical realism a little bit more often. With popular books like Weyward and The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods, this seems to be a genre that indicates that people are interested in learning a little bit while they are experiencing their escapism. And I, for one, am all for it. Weyward made my top 10 at a 5-star read, so when I saw that Emilia Hart had a new book out, I ran to grab it. I was really excited to pick up The Sirens. The books are a little bit different. Both were really strong, but I feel like this book had a little bit more emphasis on teaching me about the historical time period, and the fiction part of it was vastly intertwined with some facts that made me kind of want to research a little bit more and learn a little bit more. Now, I found Weyward super entertaining and I loved it, but I think I walked away from The Sirens with a little bit more knowledge and curiosity than I did with Weyward. The book follows dual timelines. Our contemporary timeline is set in 2019, and it follows Lucy, a college student who has some very contemporary problems. She's running away from a situation where essentially some sexual behavior got her in a little bit of trouble with social media. It's not entirely her fault, but things are a little bit sketchy, and then things get even weirder. So she's just sort of taking a break from college, and she decides to go visit her sister. The other timeline follows Mary and Elizabeth in the year 1800, and they have a very different set of problems. They are actually currently on a ship being transported from England to Australia as prisoners. England was a small but dominant country, and it often used other areas as penal colonies, including America, until that was ended by the Revolutionary War. After that, however, they transported over 162,000 people to penal colonies in Australia via ship, and about 15% of those prisoners were women. The women were often convicted of what we would consider petty crimes, but England was essentially trying to get Irish criminals off their land, and this led to the establishment of Sydney. The two stories reveal their convergence early on, as Lucy goes to visit her sister at Cliff House on Commerce Bay. Now, Commerce Bay is a fictional place, but it is based on a real location. Mary and Elizabeth are also headed to Commerce Bay. Now, it's pretty obvious to the reader that the shipwreck that everyone is talking about at Cliff House is going to be the two women that are on this ship. It becomes fairly clear foreshadowing because it takes no common sense. There are a number of men who have gone missing at Commerce Bay, and people often say that they hear women singing, particularly at night. Lucy is really intrigued by this, but she's also a little bit off her game, because when she gets to her sister's house, her sister isn't there. Now, her sister is an artist, and she is working on all kinds of paintings, and here's the weird part. Lucy has been seeing a lot of the imagery from the paintings in her dreams. I often find in books with more than one timeline that one tends to be more interesting than the other, and I think one of Emilia Hart's strengths as a writer is keeping her timelines, or her different sections, just as interesting. In this book we're following 2, in Weyward we followed 3, and I found in both books that I had a really hard time feeling like one was more important than the other, and to me that's very well balanced writing. To me, the theme of this book was really about how women connect and help each other. There's obvious themes of motherhood because you kind of can't talk about women and women without motherhood, but at the same time, I really feel like this is a story about how women unite with each other and support each other. There's a lot of female character interaction in this book that delves into relationships with pretty great depth, and I think it's well written, and I found it interesting. I don't think it's unapproachable for men by any means, but it definitely is a female-heavy story. The book deeply explores the connection of women helping each other and different power dynamics that exist, but overall it's a very positive message. It's hard to say whether I like Weyward better or the Sirens, but I guess if I really had to choose, I'd lean a little bit heavier towards Weyward. I found Weyward to be a little more exciting, and this book definitely kept me on the edge of my seat, but not in the same way that Weyward did. I gave Weyward a 5, and I would give this one a really solid 4 stars, almost 4.5, but not quite. The book was narrated by Barry Cranick, and I haven't heard any books that she's read before, but I felt like she was really strong. She reminded me a lot stylistically of powerhouses like Julia Whelan and Saskia Marleveld. I think she's right up there with them. I'm not sure if she's more well-known than she is to me, but this was my first time, and I liked her a lot. I really did find myself intrigued by both timelines. I think Hart does a great job of pulling the reader in, and in this particular case, I think she did an amazing job of educating the reader, even as she entertained them. I really did go on and do a little bit more research after I finished this book because I was curious about the things Hart was writing about, and that curiosity came from what she shared. Given the challenges of a sophomore effort, I think this book was really strong, and I have a feeling Emilia Hart is going to be on my list as an author whose books I will pay attention to. Going forward, when I see that she's come out with something new, I'm definitely going to pick it up. I've really enjoyed both of her books, and I think she's a strong writer. She's imaginative, she writes characters well, she's extremely descriptive, and her books just feel really balanced. There was a time when I would have told you that I didn't find historical fiction appealing. I consider myself more of a sci-fi fantasy reader, but I'm learning to love historical fiction, and so historical fiction with magical realism feels like a really ideal niche for me. I'm definitely going to continue to read other things, but I like this genre a lot, and I think it has a lot to offer. But remember, you might love what I hate and hate what I love, so make your own opinion. But thanks for listening to mine. See you next time.